Michael Carter had always been a man of science. His life revolved around the rational, the observable, and the quantifiable. That was why, when he first saw the shimmering distortion in the air, the thing that almost wasn't there, he nearly dismissed it as an optical illusion. He was deep in the Utah Basin, hiking through the rugged sun-baked terrain. The red rock formations towered around him, the wind whipping thin dust clouds over the parched earth. He had come here for solitude, a break from the noise of civilization. But instead, he found something else. The portal, if that's what it was, shimmered like a reflection of the cave wall behind it, almost imperceptible. It was as though the air itself had folded in on itself, creating a window to nothing. Michael only noticed it because he had dropped his water bottle, the metallic clink breaking the silence. He watched as the bottle rolled across the uneven cave floor and passed through what seemed to be thin air, vanishing completely. Frowning, he crouched down, feeling around the spot where the bottle disappeared. His hand met resistance, an invisible cold surface that rippled at his touch like the surface of a pond disturbed by a stone. Instinct told him to walk away, forget it, report it to some government agency or scientific authority. But curiosity, it always got the better of him. He stood up, staring at the shimmering anomaly. His water bottle was gone, but part of him was already trying to rationalize what he saw. This will be quick. He mentally rehearsed his plan. I'll just reach through, grab the bottle, and get the hell out of here. With a deep breath, Michael stepped forward and pushed his hand through the portal. The sensation was disorienting. His hand felt cold, like plunging it into ice water, but there was no moisture. He took a step further, his whole body crossing the threshold. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness. Then, with a sudden lurch, the world snapped into focus. He was no longer in the cave. Instead, he stood in a vast, open landscape unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky above was a strange shade of violet with clouds that shimmered like molten silver. The air was warm, almost tropical, and the wind carried unfamiliar scents, something floral, with an undercurrent of earth and spice. In the distance, towering mountains rose like jagged teeth, their peaks crowned with mist. The ground beneath his feet was covered in thick, moss-like vegetation that glowed faintly, giving off an ethereal light. But that wasn't what immediately caught his attention. Not far from where he stood, a group of tall, lithe figures had gathered. They were humanoid, but not human. Their skin shimmered like polished silver, and their faces were striking, sharp-featured and beautiful, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Their hair flowed like liquid metal down their backs, and their clothing was woven from iridescent fibers that caught the light with every movement. They seemed to be in the midst of a ritual, standing in a circle around a raised platform. And on that platform, resting in a bed of flowers and strange glowing stones, was his water bottle. Michael's stomach dropped. He had expected to find his bottle just lying on the ground, not enshrined like some sacred artifact. One of the aliens, a tall, regal-looking woman, noticed him first. Her eyes widened and she spoke in a musical, flowing language. The others turned to look, their expressions ranging from shock to awe. Michael suddenly felt very out of place. He raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Hi, he said, his voice shaky. I'm just here to grab my water bottle. I'll, be on my way. The aliens did not move, though their eyes began to narrow, their expressions hardening. One of them, a particularly fierce-looking woman with a long spear tipped with a shimmering crystal, stepped forward, her gaze locking onto him. She said something in her strange language, her tone sharp, almost accusatory. Michael's mouth went dry. He glanced at the water bottle still resting on the platform and took a tentative step forward. I'm just going to take that and leave. No trouble. Promise." The fierce alien raised her spear, pointing it directly at his chest. Michael froze. This is bad, he thought. Really bad. Just as he was contemplating whether or not to make a run for it, something unexpected happened. The leader of the group, the regal woman who had first noticed him, stepped forward. She spoke softly, her voice like the gentle chiming of bells. The others fell silent. Then, slowly, she extended her hand toward Michael and said a single word. "Carter." Michael's heart skipped a beat. The sound of his name spoken in that alien tongue sent a shiver down his spine. How could she possibly know his name? The woman, if that's what she was, lowered her hand and stepped closer, her expression unreadable. The others watched in silence, their eyes flickering with something akin to reverence. The spear-wielding one hesitated, then slowly lowered her weapon, though her eyes never left Michael. "Carter," the leader repeated, her voice more assured now, as if testing the word on her tongue. Michael swallowed hard, his mind racing. "Yes, I'm Michael Carter," he said, pointing to himself awkwardly. "That's me." The leader's eyes flicked to the water bottle on the platform, then back to him. She said something else in her melodic language, words that flowed like poetry, but of course he couldn't understand a word of it. She gestured to the bottle, then to him, as if drawing some connection between the two. The other aliens murmured among themselves, their voices low and reverent. Michael's pulse quickened. They seemed to recognize him, but how? His bottle had only fallen through the portal minutes ago, or so he thought. Then it hit him. Time. He glanced around at the strange landscape, the alien sky, the glowing vegetation. He had walked through a portal into another world, another dimension, perhaps. But what if time didn't flow the same way here? What if, for them, his bottle had appeared years ago? His mind struggled to process the implications. If that were true, then these people, these aliens, had been living with his water bottle, treating it as some kind of sacred object. And now, 2 years later, the name on that bottle, Carter, had become something more, something divine, perhaps. The leader spoke again, her tone softer now, almost questioning. She pointed at the bottle, then at Michael, then placed her hand over her heart. A gesture of understanding, of connection. Michael nodded slowly, trying to play along. "Yes," he said, pointing at the bottle. "That's mine. My name is on it." The leader's eyes widened slightly, as if some deep truth had just been confirmed. She turned to her people, raising her arms and speaking in their language. The others responded with a collective murmur of awe, their gazes fixed on Michael with renewed intensity. He suddenly felt very small, very fragile in the face of their strange reverence. Before he could react, the leader motioned for 2 of her companions to step forward. They moved with grace and precision, their silvered skin catching the light as they flanked Michael, gently but firmly guiding him toward the platform where the bottle lay. He didn't resist. He wasn't sure he could, even if he wanted to. As they approached the platform, Michael got a closer look at the bottle. It was exactly as he had left it, battered from his hike, a dent on the side from when it had fallen. But now it was adorned with intricate carvings, strange symbols and patterns etched into the metal. Flowers and stones had been meticulously arranged around it, like an offering to a god. Michael reached out, his fingers brushing the cool metal. The leader watched him closely, her glowing eyes filled with something like expectation. He hesitated, unsure of what to do. In their eyes, this bottle was sacred. If he simply took it, would they see it as sacrilege? But before he could decide, the leader spoke again, her voice gentle but commanding. "Carter, return." Michael blinked, confused. "Return? What do you mean? She pointed at the bottle, then at him, and then gestured toward the sky. The word she used was soft, almost reverent. Return. It dawned on him. They believed he had come to reclaim the object. Perhaps they thought he was some kind of deity or a messenger of the gods come to take back what was his. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, and he realized he had to tread carefully. These beings had clearly built something profound around his simple water bottle, and any misstep could be disastrous. "I don't want to offend you," Michael said slowly, though he doubted they could understand him. "I just need to understand what's going on here." The leader stepped closer, her face inches from his. Her eyes were mesmerizing, swirling with colors he had never seen before, and her expression was both curious and intense. She placed a hand gently on his chest, just above his heart, and said another word in her language, something soft and melodic that resonated deep within him. And then, as if on cue, the world around him began to shift. The landscape wavered like a mirage, and images flashed before his eyes. Visions. Michael's vision blurred as the world around him seemed to ripple with strange, otherworldly energy. His heart raced, but his body remained still, almost paralyzed by the sheer intensity of the moment. The leader, her hand still pressed gently against his chest, locked eyes with him, her gaze deep, ancient, and filled with something beyond simple curiosity. The visions that flashed across his mind were fleeting but powerful. Scenes of the alien tribe gathered around the water bottle, their faces lit with awe and reverence. Rituals performed under the violet sky, with silver-skinned figures lifting their arms in supplication. And finally, a vision of himself, Carter, standing among them, his name whispered like an incantation. He blinked, and the images faded, leaving him breathless. The leader stepped back, her expression softening, and she spoke again in her lilting musical language. This time, though he couldn't understand the words, the meaning seemed to resonate within him. It was as though the connection they shared through the portal, the strange link between their worlds, gave him glimpses of understanding that transcended language. The leader gestured to the women around her, their silvered faces still watching him with an intense, almost worshipful attention. There was a quiet, unspoken communication among them, and then, one by one, the women began to step forward. Michael's nerves flared with a mix of confusion and apprehension as the women, tall, graceful, and impossibly beautiful, gathered around him. The leader spoke once more, her voice low and profound, but this time her words were punctuated by gestures that left no ambiguity. She pointed to Michael, then to herself, and then to the women surrounding them. The meaning was clear. They were offering themselves to him. Michael's mind reeled. He felt his heart hammering in his chest, a surge of adrenaline making his hands shake. This wasn't just reverence. They believed he was something more. The water bottle, his name, Carter, had somehow elevated him to godlike status in their world. And now, they were offering him what they believed to be the ultimate tribute, themselves. One of the women, her silver hair flowing like molten metal and her eyes glowing faintly with inner light, stepped forward and placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, almost electric, sending a shiver through his body. She looked up at him with a mixture of awe and devotion. Another woman followed, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, her gaze filled with the same strange intensity. "Wait, wait," Michael stammered, stepping back, trying to process what was happening. I'm not a god. I'm just a guy. I came here for my water bottle, that's all." His words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The leader watched him with knowing eyes, as if she understood his confusion but had already decided that his protests were irrelevant. In their eyes, the truth was clear. The object he had brought from the other world, His world was sacred, and by claiming it, by returning to their realm, he had fulfilled some ancient prophecy or expectation. The women surrounding him moved closer, their touches gentle but insistent. Michael felt a rising sense of panic. He had no idea how to navigate this situation. He didn't want to offend them, but he also couldn't accept what they were offering. He had to make them understand that he wasn't the figure they believed him to be. "Listen," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I appreciate what you're doing, but I'm not who you think I am. I'm not a god. I am just an average human from Earth." The leader stepped forward again, her face soft with understanding but firm in its conviction. She placed her hand over his heart once more, her touch calming. This time, when she spoke, her voice was filled with something deeper, something that resonated in his core. "Carter," she said softly, and then she added something else, a word he didn't recognize but one that felt heavy with meaning. She pointed to the sky, to the portal that shimmered faintly in the distance, and then back to him. Her gaze was steady, as if she were trying to convey the weight of something far larger than either of them. It dawned on him then. This wasn't just about him. It was about their belief, their culture, their understanding of the universe. To them, the arrival of the water bottle had been a sign, a message from the gods. His presence had confirmed that belief, and now they were offering him their most cherished tribute, not out of individual desire, but as part of a larger spiritual system. The women were offering themselves as a sign of their devotion, not to him as a man, but to what he represented in their world, and as if the world itself let him hear their voices. Michael took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Our sacred land," Lyra explained, her voice soft but urgent, "was once a place of peace, but for 2 cycles of the moons, the beast has terrorized us, taking our resources and leaving us in fear. We have no power to confront it. But when we found your water bottle, we believed it was a sign, a gift from the gods. You, Michael Carter, are a god sent to save us." Michael shook his head, bewildered. "I'm just a human. I'm not a god, and I certainly can't fight a beast. I've never even had to deal with anything like that before." "But you are chosen," another woman insisted, her eyes wide and shimmering. "You possess strength beyond our understanding. We have seen it in you." Lyra stepped closer, holding a small, intricately carved vial filled with a glowing, iridescent liquid. "This is our nectar, a gift from our most sacred plant. It will give you the strength you need to face the beast." Michael took the vial, his heart pounding. The liquid sparkled like liquid starlight, and a sweet, intoxicating aroma wafted from it. "What does it do?" he asked, hesitantly. "It will enhance you," Lyra replied, her gaze unwavering. "You will become more than human, able to confront the terror that haunts our tribe." He hesitated, staring into the vial. Was he really prepared to embrace this strange fate? But as he looked into the faces of the alien women, their hope and faith resting on him, he felt a surge of resolve. They believed in him, and perhaps that belief could be the key to overcoming not just the beast, but the fear that threatened to consume them all. "Fine," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'll help you with your beast problem, but if I'm going to do this, I'll need to know everything about it." Michael raised the vial to his lips and drank deeply. The nectar flooded his senses, a rush of sweetness that seemed to ignite his very being. It tasted familiar, but he could not quite narrow it down to something from Earth. It coursed through him like wildfire, filling him with warmth and energy. He felt his muscles tightening, his senses sharpening as the world around him brightened in vivid detail. He could hear the rustle of distant leaves, the heartbeat of the earth beneath him, and the whispers of the women surrounding him. As the effects of the nectar took hold, he felt a shift within himself, as though he were shedding his old skin and emerging anew. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "This might help with your beast problem," he said, his voice deeper, more resonant. "Thanks for the sweet nectar, ladies. Stay here while I take care of your beast." The women clasped their hands together, their eyes sparkling with admiration and gratitude. "You are our savior," Lyra exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "Please be careful." With newfound strength and a sense of purpose, Michael stepped away from the gathering, his muscles coiled and ready. He ventured into the vibrant wilderness, the sun casting a golden hue over the land. The flora seemed to bow in respect as he passed, and the fauna eyed him with a mix of curiosity and wariness. The path to the beast's lair was fraught with dense underbrush and steep ravines, but Michael moved with agility, the nectar boosting him beyond his human limits. He felt invincible, as if the very essence of the alien world flowed through him, enhancing his every step. After what felt like mere moments, he arrived at a clearing where the ground was scorched and the trees lay uprooted. In the center stood the beast, a monstrous creature, its scales glistening ominously in the filtered light. It was larger than he had imagined, a hulking mass of muscle and fury, with eyes that glowed like embers in the dark. Michael stood at the edge of the clearing, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he faced the beast. The creature turned slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto him with a predatory intensity. It let out a guttural growl that echoed through the clearing, shaking the ground beneath his feet. "Here goes nothing," he whispered, channeling the confidence he had gained from the nectar. He took a step forward, the power within him surging like a tidal wave. The beast lunged, and Michael reacted instinctively, dodging to the side and feeling the air rush past him as the creature roared in frustration. The battle began in a flurry of movement. Michael's newfound agility allowed him to weave between the beast's strikes, his heart pounding as he aimed to outsmart it rather than overpower it. He realized that brute strength wouldn't win this fight. He needed to outmaneuver the creature, to draw it away from its lair and towards the wide-open space of the clearing. Michael recalled the tales the alien women had shared about the beast's habits, its weaknesses. He remembered how it had been drawn to the sound of their songs, how it had once been a guardian of the forest before it had become corrupted by darkness. He quickly formulated a plan. If he could lure the creature away with his voice, perhaps he could lead it away from the tribe entirely. With a deep breath, he began to sing, a melody that harmonized with the alien flora around him, a sound that resonated with the very essence of the world. To his surprise, the beast paused, its ears twitching as it turned its head, captivated by the sound. Michael felt a connection, as if the very fabric of the universe was aligning to aid him. The creature started to move toward him, curiosity replacing its aggressiveness. As it approached, Michael held his ground, continuing to sing, feeling the power of the nectar coursing through him, enhancing his voice until it filled the clearing with an enchanting resonance. The beast was entranced, its glowing eyes softening as it drew closer. Suddenly, in a moment of clarity, Michael realized that this beast was not merely a monster. It was a creature in pain, driven mad by suffering and loss. He reached out, palm open, and spoke gently. "I'm here to help you. You don't have to be alone anymore." The beast paused, its massive form trembling as it regarded him with a mixture of confusion and longing. In that moment, Michael saw a flicker of recognition in its eyes, the remnants of the guardian it once was. As he continued to sing, the beast moved closer until it was within arm's reach. He felt an overwhelming surge of compassion and empathy, understanding that this creature had been a protector before it fell into madness. With a final, heart-wrenching note, he reached out and touched the creature's snout, feeling the warmth radiate from its body. In a flash of light, the connection between them solidified, and Michael felt a wave of energy wash over him. The beast let out a sorrowful cry, the sound echoing through the forest, and in that moment, the darkness that had consumed it began to lift. The creature blinked, and when it opened its eyes again, they shone bright and clear, devoid of malice. As the beast stepped back, a transformation began. The scales dulled and the roaring growls quieted. What stood before him was no longer a terror but a majestic creature, a guardian reborn. The beast bowed its head, acknowledging Michael in a gesture of gratitude, and with a powerful leap, it vanished into the depths of the forest, leaving behind a peaceful silence. Michael stood in the clearing, breathless and overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just occurred. He had faced the beast, not with violence but with understanding and compassion. The nectar had given him strength, but it was his heart that had truly triumphed. As he made his way back to the tribe, he was greeted with cheers and joyous cries from the alien women. They surrounded him, their faces radiant with relief and admiration. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining brightly. "You did it, Michael! You truly are our savior!" "I couldn't have done it without your belief in me," he replied, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. The beast was suffering. It needed compassion, not fear. "Looks like you have got your guardian back." That night, the tribe held a celebration in Michael's honor. The clearing was adorned with glowing flowers, and the air was filled with music and laughter. The alien women danced gracefully, their movements fluid and enchanting, while Michael joined them, overwhelmed by a sense of belonging he had never felt before. As the festivities continued, Lyra pulled him aside, her expression serious yet soft. "You have saved our people, Michael, and now you get to drink my hidden special nectar as your reward, and I don't easily share it, only on special occasions." She took him to a large shack with a surprising comfy-looking bed and closed the door behind her, but not before giving the listeners of the story a little wink.